But at the same right, I didn't know that that body on the other side of the wall was me. I thought me was up here watching. And it's kind of odd to say, but I truly didn't know it was me. I was looking down, seeing that body. It looked like me, but it couldn't be me because me was up here watching everything.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Celestevolve podcast. I'm super excited to welcome Vinney Tolman to our podcast today. Welcome, Vinny. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. It's my pleasure to be here.
Vinny, you had an incredible near-death experience, right? So before we dive into your near-death story, can you tell us what it was like before your near-death experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I used to be kind of your big ego guy. I was 25 years old. I had already had a great career in construction and construction management, as well as I had dabbled for about 3 years in TV and film, from the production side. So, at 25 years old, I had essentially felt that I was at a level of success that most people my age had not been to yet. So I felt very successful. And I was newly dabbling in bodybuilding. And that's kind of who I was before I had my experience.
Were you at a point where you felt like, oh, this is not enough. I need something more. Give me some difficulties, some sufferings. Did you do that?
No, not necessarily that, but I was open to the adventure of new things. I was always trying new things, visiting new places, making new friends. So I was very open to all sorts of new things.
That's nice. So then what happened? What led you to this? What led to the near-death experience story? Let's dive in.
Me and a buddy of mine that we were bodybuilding together, um, he and I had ordered a supplement online. It was a very popular supplement. We couldn't find it in the United States anywhere, so we ordered some from Thailand. What we didn't know is the product from Thailand was 100% solution, which the product we were getting in the States was a 5% solution. So when we got this product, we took our normal dosage, which was a little bottle cap of liquid, and come to find out that was 20 times what our old dose was. So it was quite toxic for us right away. We took it on a Saturday morning on January 18th, 2003. Instantly, we both started to feel sick. So, being our young selves, we decided, hey, let's go get some food and maybe that will make us feel better. So we went down to our local Dairy Queen, which was only about a mile away. So we head down to that Dairy Queen. We make it into the Dairy Queen. I go stumbling into the bathroom. Meanwhile, my buddy, he stumbles into the dining room and collapses on the first booth he can reach. Right then and there, he starts to vomit. And he vomits all over the table. The manager of the restaurant came and saw that. He called emergency services and they hauled him away. He ended up being fine. They pumped his stomach and kept him overnight, but he ended up being fine, no problems. No residual issues from the incident. But with me, I went into that bathroom, I locked the door, and I did the same thing, but I did it by myself in the bathroom. And I wasn't found till about an hour later. And I had aspirated. I had fallen on my back and vomited, and so I had suffocated on my own vomit. That's essentially how I died. Was I suffocated? Yeah.
People say that like when it's going through all of these things, they actually don't feel pain or they were just like watching it, but you actually felt the whole thing.
I did. I felt the dizziness, the suffocating. I didn't feel. By then, I was out of my body. I did come out of like a black spot. I felt like I was going into a kind of a black room or a dark room. And before I knew it, I was seeing this scene start to unfold in front of me. And this scene was this dead body on the ground. But just over this wall, I was watching my buddy and I watched him get taken away in an ambulance. So I was happy about that. I was happy he was getting the service that he needed. But at the same right, I didn't know that that body on the other side of the wall was me. I thought me was up here watching. And it's kind of odd to say, but I truly didn't know it was me. I was looking down, seeing that body. It looked like me, but it couldn't be me because me was up here watching everything.
Oh my goodness. And then what happened?
So then I witnessed many minutes later, after they hauled my buddy away, a manager of the restaurant, he came and opened that bathroom for another guest that was there. They needed to use the WC. They needed to use the bathroom. And so that manager opened that room and saw this dead body on the ground. So they called 911 again. They got emergency services there a second time. And this other crew who came, they were a 3-man crew. One of the men was a rookie. He had just gotten through orientation and training as an EMT, and this was like his first week as a medic. And he was functioning as like an observer or a helper. So he was functioning as the third man on this team. They showed up. He was kind of standing in the background as the 2 veterans went down and worked on this body. They tried to get a heartbeat. They couldn't. They tried to get oxygen into the lungs. They couldn't. So they did pronounce the body, DOA, or dead on arrival. They proceeded to put the body in a bag. After they had put it in a bag, this rookie, he started to think these thoughts like, why can't we do more? Why are we not trying harder for him? And I could hear out loud his thoughts. And that's when I realized I could hear everyone's thoughts, everyone in the room, which that was weird. And I was kind of analyzing that, thinking, why am I hearing everyone's thoughts? I thought it was a movie. That's what it felt like to me. And I thought, why would the director want me to hear everyone's thoughts? It's a little confusing, you know? And then I watched them bag this body, put it in the back of an ambulance, and I watched this rookie sit back there, and he was feeling almost guilt. Like he was feeling, that there should be more being done for this body. Meanwhile, the other 2 medics, they went ahead and got witness statements and paperwork signed. And about 45 minutes after they had found this body, secured it, put it in the ambulance, they went ahead and left the scene. And on the dot, about 45 minutes after it all happened, this medic got this idea. I want to try to resuscitate this guy. So while his other 2 medics were distracted with driving away from the scene, he went ahead and opened up that body bag and felt around for a sign of life. He ended up feeling something that was enough of a sign for him. He went ahead and hooked up the body with a defib, which is the electrical device to shock the heart. And he was able to get the heart to come back. After 3 rounds of shocks, he was able to get the heart to come back. And so now they had a body that wasn't all the way dead.
Oh my goodness. Did time feel different at that time? Like, because you
Very
said one.
different.
What
Very
is it? What does
different.
it feel like?
It feels so much faster, but yet certain moments felt so much slower. It felt like time itself is truly relative to your attention to it. That, once they started that heart, all of a sudden things were moving so fast, but yet it felt like it was slowing down. And I was able to observe so much of what was going on. I witnessed them, take the body to a hospital, transfer it to a hospital bed. And as they did that, the body itself was going into seizures and convulsions. So they strapped the body down. And when they did, I felt someone strapping my left arm. And I looked down, to my left arm, and what I was seeing was the strap on the body, and I was seeing the body's arm, not my arm. And that's when it dawned on me that everything I'd been watching was actually my own death. And that was huge. I had this spiral of fear and this spiral of thoughts of, how could you be so dumb that you didn't even know you were watching your own death this whole time? So I ended up starting to see anything bad that I ever did in my life. I saw it from my eyes, but I also saw it from the eyes of anyone I did it to, which that's an odd experience to go through. Sometimes we hurt people even when we don't know we're hurting people, and I saw every time. Then I had this feeling, why do I exist if this is all that I am? And when I had that feeling, all of a sudden this warmth came over me from behind, and then I started to see everything good that I ever did. And if there was a length to what they were showing me, it felt like the good side was 3-4 times the length of the bad side of what I did. And I started to feel redeemed in my own mind and my own consciousness. But I felt this tremendous love being poured over me. A love that you can't deserve, a love that no one could deserve. That we could do everything perfectly on this earth and we're still unworthy of this love. And it was being poured upon me, like overwhelmingly upon me. So I turned towards that love and I saw this man. He was standing there all dressed in white. He looked like the Hollywood version of God, like white guy, long white hair.
Hey guys, if you've been enjoying this video so far, please make sure to support this channel. You can either subscribe to the channel, leave a like or a comment, or even share it with your family and friends. Apparently, it helps with the algorithm and I have no idea how that works. Also, I'm sending out weekly love notes where I'm sharing with you my own personal spirituality journey, and also will keep you posted on the upcoming community events that we have. We have a lot lined up for you. We've got group channeling events, Akashic record reading events, and a lot of such community events that I think you're going to absolutely love. All you have to do is go to www.celestevolve.com/love notes. Now let's get back to the video.
Hair, long white beard, smiling face. And so my first thought was, oh, you're God. And he answered me without using his mouth. He answered, no, son, I'm not God. And my follow-up thought, being raised Christian, some Christians try to poke me on this, but my follow-up thought was, well, is it somehow that you're Jesus then? And he laughed at that and said, no, I'm not Jesus. He said that he is my guide, that I could call him Drake. His friends call him Drake, and that he was there to help me go wherever I wanted to go. And so I thought about it from just a minute, like I could go anywhere in the universe, anywhere in the cosmos. And then I kept going back to thinking about that love I was feeling coming from him. So I asked him, where does that love come from? I want to go there. And he got really excited and he said, well, that's home. That's your home. That's my home. I can take you there. And so we began this journey, kind of a proverbial journey, but a physical journey too. We were actually physically moving.
How does the movement, like when you talk about, was it like, because usually, they talk about how they felt they became a particle, but in this case, it's like two physical bodies. You're like human beings, and then you're traveling through the tunnel. You saw the galaxies?
To me, the way that I've visualized it since is all of us are a silver cord of white light. All our soul is. It's a silver cord coming off of source, off of God, creator. And what Drake was doing was helping me go up and travel up that cord towards source. And so some people call that a white tunnel. To me, it felt like an opening up of a space, and we were moving through space. But at the same time, I knew I wasn't moving necessarily from the location I was at. I could feel movement. I definitely felt movement from point A to point B, but I felt like I was moving through distance, not covering distance, which that's different. To me, it feels like we were probably opening some type of portal, some type of form of moving through dimensions as we were progressing. Yeah.
It reminds me of sometimes when we're dreaming, it's like you're stuck there, and when you can imagine the next situation in your dream, then it opens up. It's kind of, is it like that? Like when you focus, it starts opening up. Like these new visions just keep coming up when you're ready, when you're done with this vision, then the new one opens up. Is it like that?
It feels like there's unlimited dimensions. I'm sure there's some limit to them, but it feels like they're unlimited, and the consciousness, when it's adjusted or led correctly, it can go to any dimension. Yeah. And that's what we were doing. We were traveling from the earthly dimension into a much higher dimension, to what I would call the heavenly dimension, or home. To me, it felt like home.
And from that perspective, what did Earth look like?
So I noticed that Earth was right there, but yet it was far, far away. I feel that as we travel through dimensions, we're also traveling vast distances, and that somehow there's a way to move from the earthly realm to a much higher realm by crossing vast different distances. But we can also cross it very quickly by going through dimensions instead of across dimensions. And I could feel that the earthly realm is this distant place to where we were going, but yet at the same right, it coexists in the same space of where we were going as well.
You know, Bashar, someone asked Bashar about how can we travel into other dimensions, etc. So Bashar said it's not like you literally actually travel like that. So if we are here, this is going to be an XYZ coordinate. So if this point is XYZ, then if you want to go here, you just probably change one of the coordinate or one of the attribute. Instead of 10.2.3, it would just be 10.2.5, and then you just appear at the next place.
You appear there, yeah. To me, it feels like a toroidal field. It feels as if we're a stack of records, right? And the third dimension, fourth dimension, earthly life is one of those records, one of those levels we're existing on. At the same right, we can go up or down even from our realm. Even with our thoughts, we can do that. And that's what it felt like to me. We were kind of punching holes through other dimensions, trying to get to a much higher place. But at the same right, we weren't moving necessarily to a different vocale, just a higher vocale or a higher frequency. Yeah. I know
That
that when
makes
I
sense.
speak to physicists about it, they understand it. Like, especially quantum physicists, they understand that time and space is relative. And if you can escape this timeline, you can get to those other dimensions.
Yeah, it's true. Even there's a colleague of mine also who's interested in physics. I was trying to speak about these kind of topics to the rest of my colleagues, but they would all be like, this is complete woo woo. But the physics guy was like,
Yeah.
okay, that makes sense. There is something to it.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
really is. And to me, the fabric of the universe is a single fabric. So when we are punching a hole into that fabric, we can instantly enter here and exit anywhere else that the fabric is. So that's anywhere else in the universe.
You should watch a series, a Korean series called The Eternal Monarch. There it shows it's like this visual representation. There's two obelisks, and then they go through that. That's a portal, and then they go into the other universe. And through that, they can go to multiple infinite universes. So it's a very cool series.
Hmm.
Like, yeah. So then what happened? Did you meet the source?
So in the process of this journey, I was, being raised Christian, I fully believed that I should be able to just get into heaven. I had everything that I thought I needed to get there. But Drake, he helped me understand that it wasn't fully exactly how I thought it was. It was a little different, and I had to embody more principles than what I had been taught. First and foremost, I had to understand that authenticity was the most important principle for me. That I needed to figure out who I really was, not who I thought I was, but who I really was. And once I could do that, I could start moving, I could start going and progressing. And he went through and he taught me the reason I was here, here on Earth, and it was to come to school. That Earth is a classroom and not a courtroom, and I wasn't here to be classified and judged, but I was here to learn, to build relationships, and to create. And the better I did that, the more accelerated distance I got to travel with my journey. So there was a bit of that I had to learn even in the journey. And then he taught me that loving everyone is foundational for us to be able to move through the cosmos. And if we can't find a love for all of creation, then we can't move through all of creation. So it's that love of everything. I mean, the good, the bad, the ugly, like everything. We have to love it all. And if we can, that gives us the flexibility or the navigation to be able to move through all of life. And at that point, I'm like, really? I have to learn all this stuff to just get there? And he was like so loving about it the whole time and kind of laughing too. And he goes, well, there's still more actually. There's a little bit more. And so I asked him, I was like, what could there be more than that? And he explained that if we were to tap into our silver cord, the cord that is us, our soul, our soul spark, our piece of source that is us, if we were to tap into it, we would find that it actually has its own voice and that God is always trying to speak to us, always. But what we do is we shut it down because it's inconvenient. We shut it down because we think it's not what we want. But many times we shut it down because of our entertainment, our technology. So he was teaching me that we have an inner voice and that one of the enemies to that inner voice is our technology. So it's important to build a healthy relationship with technology and not let technology be the replacement to God. Because if you look at 2 or 3 generations back, when people needed direction, they went to God and they sought direction through God. Now, people just go to Google. When people need direction, they're not turning to God. And he showed me that eventually we would have to make a very clear choice. Do we turn to God, like the big G God of out there, but truly turning inwardly because we are that silver cord, we are that piece of God? Or we would turn to the outside world as our God.
Those three
And
are
that was
such powerful
that was a big one.
insights.
Yeah. That was a big one. I didn't realize I had been turning to the outside world as my God. And I had. Next, he taught me that I had to release all prejudice for everyone. And I said, well, that's not a problem. I have no prejudice. And he looked at me like, wow, that's interesting because everyone has some prejudice. And I said, nope, not me. I don't have any prejudice. And so he looked at me real close and he goes, well, how do you feel about prejudiced people? And I was like, I hate them. They're so bad. I don't like prejudice. And then he showed me a little kind of effigy of me, how I was thinking I'm over here on the non-prejudice side of life. And he picked me up and he like lifted me up and carried me over to the prejudice side of life. And I was upset, but he said, Vinny, you can't hate prejudiced people if you're not prejudiced. Because that in itself is prejudice. that blew my mind. Here I was thinking that was not me, but yet here I was being the very thing I hated. So I did have to forgive myself first for having that prejudice, and then forgive all those who have their own prejudice. And it's not a forgiving where you accept them as far as their prejudice, but you accept them as other beings of God. And when you do that, you realize that we're all this energetic family. Not only do we all bleed red, but inside that soul is the silver cord. And we all have that cord, all of us. And that was a big one for me. That changed my life, actually. It completely changed my life. And now, when I get upset about something, I see it as a great opportunity to learn about something from my past that is coming up that I was prejudiced about. I had a really cool experience the other day. This big lifted truck came roaring through my road and cut me off, cut a bunch of other cars off. And it was taking some major dangerous actions on the road. And I got so upset about it that he would be, or he or she, I couldn't see who was driving, that he or she was being so careless with everyone else's lives. And so I took that opportunity with my wife's help. She helped me see that I was that guy at one point. And that's why it made me so upset. So I had to forgive the guy I was driving around, but I also had to forgive my old self who used to drive like that when he was in his early 20s, like some people do. So it was a great learning experience. And then on top of that, he taught me a few more things, that there's purpose to this life, even purpose to the evil in this life, that for us to be able to choose, there has to be a good choice and a bad choice. And that's the purpose of evil. And if we remove all evil, if we remove all the bad things that can happen to us, then where there's no choice, there's no growth. So it's a vital part of our existence here. But what happens is our soul is making these choices through a veil of forgetfulness. If we could know how much our Creator loves us, it would impact every decision we make. And so every day we are making our decisions through this veil of forgetfulness and using, faith to remember what our Creator cares about us. And it was a very profound experience all the way around. But by the time I got to the end of the things he was teaching me, I actually touched down in this place, this space, what I call heaven. I also call it home because I felt the very moment that my toes touched down in this place, I felt home. I felt as if this was the place I had been missing my whole life. And as soon as my toes did touch down, by the way, we do have toes. We have an energetic body still. My toes touched down in that grass. And the grass, it actually reached up to meet my toes. And then they kind of hugged me as my feet came down. And I could feel more love coming to me than I knew was even existent in the entire universe combined. I felt so much love coming to me from this grass. And I looked down and I just saw millions of shades of green and white and yellow in this grass. And I noticed that the grass itself, it had light coming from it. And I looked around and I could tell that in this space, this heavenly realm, there is no outside sun. That everything there is source light. So the light comes from within everything there. And I could also tell that there was more energy in a single blade of grass than there is probably in 100 of our suns. There is so much energy. It's overwhelming, but yet it's so wonderful to feel that much love being poured upon me. All I could think was, I'm not worth this. And all I could hear, and it's weird, I could hear it from the grass. I could hear, yes, you are. Because you are part of God. You are part of Source. As I was embracing that, I realized that there was these like rainbow, iridescent waves of energy coming off the grass. And even the grass itself had the sweetest smell, like delicious sweet smell. And even to touch it, you were tasting it in your energetic body. And Drake was just observing all this, and he was just smiling and kind of, it looked like he was a proud father, kind of. And he goes, Vinny, if you really like the grass, you should see the flowers. And I freaked out. I was like, there's flowers. I've never been a flower guy here, on Earth, but there, I freaked out. I was like, there's flowers, what? And so he took my consciousness and he put it on a flower, on this beautiful flower. And there was this liquid lavender / burgundy colors just flowing all the way through each petal. And I could feel everywhere that I would touch the flower, it would glow white there because it was gathering all this love energy to put it in me. And as I'm just connecting to the flower the same way that I connect to the grass, then Drake showed me there was trees, and I had this beautiful connection with the trees. And I was able to see that just like the grass, each tree had this supreme individual consciousness, but it also had a group consciousness of all the trees together too. And that all of these things were just sending so much love to me. I remember I kept thinking, like, who are they? They can't be sending this to me. Like, I don't deserve even a millionth of what they're sending me. And yet they continued to pour it on me. And as this was all going on, I then noticed this building. And I could tell it was a building of learning truth. And not the lies that were taught on earth, but truth. Unperverted truth. Just absolute truth. And truth that is eternal in all the different cosmos. So people that were there were just so excited. They were going in and out of this building from room to hallways. But the building functioned off of frequency. So someone would walk up to a room that they would want to go in. And if they could match the frequency of the room just formed an opening right there. They would walk in and it would seal. And if they couldn't match the frequency, they would lovingly keep walking until they found a room they could match. And then the opening would form. But it was all built out of so much excitement and love of truth. And so I was getting myself ready, getting myself all hyped up that I was going to go over this building. I thought that was going to be like the next step for me. When Drake said, hey, Vinny, this is going to be hard, but it's going to be worth it. And he hugged me. And as he hugged me, I felt even more love coming into me. I felt, again, love that there's nothing I could ever do to deserve it. And I could feel this expansion to my soul, to Drake's soul. I could feel this loving expansion of the two of us as we hugged. And then I heard my brother on earth, saying a prayer over my body in the hospital. So meanwhile, I had been brain dead for 3 days in a coma. And this was the third night, and my brother, he was essentially saying this prayer to release whatever this hold was on my body and to bring my consciousness back. and to make my body whole, and saying many other things. By the time he got done, by the time he closed that prayer, I felt a very strong pull, and it was pulling me back to my body. I didn't even get a chance to turn and look back at Drake. The very next thing I remember, I woke up. The hard part was, though, I didn't remember my experience yet. That didn't happen until a day later. So for one day, I just woke up in this hospital, didn't know how I got there. I was a little angry. I was extremely claustrophobic. I wanted to go home, so they tested me for about 6 hours. And finally, after 6 hours of tests, I passed every test. They had to let me go home. I was up walking around. I was fine. All of my motor functions were fine. All of my reflexes were fine. My neurology was fine. They tested everything, and everything was fine. They let me go. I woke up at 1:11 in the morning. On the 21st of January, I went home about 7:30. And for that first day, it was a little blissful because I just had that claustrophobic feeling, but yet I had this weird feeling that I wanted to go home. And when I got home, I still had that feeling I wanted to go home. And I remember how odd that was. I almost felt like I needed to pack a bag. But I'm like, but I'm at home. Like, what? Now, I had an apartment too, and I kind of doubled in my house and my apartment back then. So I was thinking, well, maybe I need to go to my apartment. I didn't understand it. I didn't quite understand it. So I did pack a bag, didn't make it any better. The very next night after all the, going home, packing a bag, the night after all that, my sister was taking me to dinner and a few of my other family. And she cornered me and asked me if I remembered anything. And I was going to tell her no. I even formed the words like, no, you're crazy. I don't remember anything. But as I tried to say that, my experience started to pour out of me. And it was so weird for me to be saying something at the same time as remembering it. And after about 5 minutes of just talking about it, I just started to weep because it was all back now. The whole experience was back. Even the part where it was my brother who called me back. And that was really, really rough because after that, I knew why I wanted to go home now. I knew that it was because I wanted to go to my heavenly home. And I was suicidal for a few weeks. I looked up the most dangerous jobs that you can get back then. I signed up for the second least dangerous because the most dangerous, you have to join the Navy for 4 years before you can do that job. Even before you can train to do that job. So I began that process to get myself in the most dangerous field possible so I could have a lucky accident on the deck of a ship and be gone, get to go back home. It didn't work. So this all happened at the end of January. By April, so just a few months later, I met my wife. We knew we were going to get married before we went on a single date. Yeah, we knew it. We both knew it. And we both discussed it with each other. And it was a weird conversation to know you're going to marry someone and then have them remind you, oh, yeah, but you do need to take me on some dates first. And so we did go on those dates. One of those dates was to go to a family reunion. And it wasn't my style, not a thing I liked to do back then. And Andrea, she took me to this family reunion. And there, I'm watching a historical presentation of this little town in Wyoming. And I see Drake, his face, a huge projection of it on this big screen. But the mystery to me is it said his name was Charles. It didn't say his name was Drake. So I was upset, but I was excited. And I recognized his last name. It was the same last name as my grandmother. So we went directly to my grandmother's house, and I asked her, I said, "Grandmother, tell me about this Charles guy. Tell me about him who shares your last name." And her response was, "Oh, you mean great grandpa Drake?" And that was, I lost
Oh,
it. I lost it. I was weeping. She was looking at me like I was a freak, you know. She's like, "What's wrong with him?" And Andrea kind of expressed and explained that that I'd had my experience. It was hard for me to talk about. She was really the only one I shared it with. I tried to share it with other people, but I would just start crying. And then they look at this like big bodybuilder guy, like, why is he crying? You know?
yeah.
So I tried to share it with people, but I couldn't. Not for years later. It took about 5 years to be comfortable talking about it, but I would have this like 15-minute window. After I'd been talking more than 15 minutes, I would again just start to weep. And people don't understand when you feel love like that, your body yearns so bad to feel it again. And so even though you can have an amazing life here, it's hard for the consciousness to keep diving into that and not just wanting it so bad. So, since then, Andrea has been a tremendous gift from heaven in helping me build a life and build a way of finding little snippets of that love here. Little snippets, micro snippets of that love. But still, I get to find it here. And so I live my life in a way where I work with other people every day. I help them turn on their own divinity inside and learn how to listen to it and let it guide them. And I help them with their lives. So I'm able to kind of do heaven's work with my day to day at the same time as once in a while I see God's eyes in the eyes of the people I work with.
Wow. I don't think I've had someone who's gone through a near-death experience with these principles and these teachings explained in such a loving manner. Like the lessons
Yeah.
that you learned from the other side, they're so profound.
Each, each lesson felt like a hug. It was cool. It was very beautiful.
And when you say you went and you saw this other place with the grass and the flowers and the building, have you watched the movie The Soul?
No, I haven't.
So The Soul is about a near-death experience like story, actually.
Okay.
It's an animated movie. You should watch it because there are a lot of people at that when it was released, a lot of people were watching it. So in that movie, it shows all the souls going through this tunnel. So it's a near-death experience. Like the person
Okay.
went down the drain. It's a very funny animated movie, but all the adults
Okay.
watch it. So in that, there is this building that they talk about where they'll go for these lessons. So that time, the person was worried that he didn't find the purpose in life. So the whole movie revolves around finding the purpose in life. So now,
Oh, okay.
yeah, now that you've gone
Yeah.
there and you have come back, right? How did your life change? I mean, you said that you were
Oh,
looking for work.
everything changed. Yeah, everything changed for me. I now began living life for other people, as well as I still was honoring and loving myself, but at the same time, most of my life was in pursuit of service of others after that. And I still is to this day. I live kind of an 80-20 rule. 80% of my life energy goes to help others, 20% towards myself and my family. And priority wise, my family matters most. But the energy itself, the expense of the energy, I put so much into helping others. And that's my purpose. So that's why I am still here to this day.
Why is that so important?
Because when you're serving others, you're serving God. When you're serving your fellow being, when you're serving even the earth, you're serving God. When you can serve the divine everywhere you see it, you're serving God. Even if the being that you're serving is not acting divine, doesn't matter. Had an occurrence this morning early at like 6 a.m. at a store where someone was very much in a carnal nature, in a human nature, and I could see they needed just a little deposit of divinity. And so I reached out and connected and let that person know that Source is really caring about them and that today was going to be a good day. And I showed them how today was going to be a good day. And it was just a awesome experience. And I've had that thousands of times where God will put me in front of someone who needs something, even if it's just a message, and that message will just deposit in my heart, and then I deliver it.
So, this person that you met, what was the message that you had to deliver to him?
Well, this person was homeless. I saw them outside of a grocery store, rifling through the garbage and rifling through like the cigarette butts, trying to find some smokes and stuff. And I could see that they were hungry and cold. And so I told him that, God was really caring about him today and wanted, and every day, and that today God was going to make today a really good day. And so took him on a little bit of a shopping spree and got him some things he needed, not just for today. And overall, we both got done with a hug, and he knew that God was aware of him by the end of our exchange. And I knew that God was aware of me and him. He and I knew with every fiber of me that God was well aware of both of us and was grateful that number one, that I would help, but more importantly, that he would receive. Because sometimes when God wants to give us something, we turn it down, we push it away. And he didn't. He embraced it. But he's also very, very cold. And it was a lot warmer inside the grocery store.
So, you had no other choice than to
Well,
receive.
he was incentivized to go inside and get warmed up while we bought some things he needed. Yeah.
So, let me ask you, because you said that you are in service of others and you would continue to see a lot more people like that, right? Where they would need resources. What is your relationship with money like after the
Money's
experience that
just
you had?
energy. Money is no different than oxygen that we breathe. Breathe it in, breathe it out. It's just energy. Yeah. I don't look at it as anything. It doesn't hold negative or positive. It's just energy. Now, it can carry negative if I program negative to it. It can also carry positive if I program positive to it. But it's just energy. Yeah.
That's interesting. I recently found a cat, a stray cat, and the cat had a broken limb. And here, the vets are more expensive than the normal people.
Oh,
So
yeah.
so I took them to the cat, and I'm thinking about money, and I'm like, okay, that's fine, because I have no idea what it's gonna cost for the vet. So I went there, and then it did cost some money, and I had to pay. And I'm like, when they talk about the bill, this is how much it's gonna cost. Suddenly, my energy just gets drained. So,
Yeah.
when you say the energy, so I think about how can I change that perspective? Because obviously,
So here's what you can do is you can look at that bill as, oh no, I have to pay this much to help this cat. Or you can say, oh wow, this is an awesome opportunity for me to prove how much I care about Source.
I like that.
Because the more energy you give, the more sacrifice you put into it, right? So if you only have to give a little, then it's not much sacrifice. But here's a guarantee I have for you. In doing that, God or Source will reciprocate your investment. So that money or resource that you put towards God or source or mankind, animal kind, that will come tenfold in love or other forms of energy. And
You're
so
right.
likely you're going to love that cat a lot, and that cat's going to really help you through some times that you need that cat.
Hmm. You know, when you said that that you saw the energy in the plant and in the flowers and everything, that's something that I'm beginning to realize only now, right? Like today I was going for a walk and I saw this Rolls Royce car over there. And I'm like, before the old me would be like, oh, this is like such an expensive car. Why would people waste money on that? It's just for show off. Like I would just look at it like that. But this time I walked and I realized that this is also source, right? All of this is an expression of source. So then when you look at it, it's beautiful in its own ways as well. You've mentioned that you do a lot of sessions with people as well, right? I've noticed that
I
on
do.
your, yeah. What is that process like? How do you help people through your
So
sessions?
every session is different. There's not any one session like another. But what I do is I put the client, the guest, I put them in the driver's seat. I have them set an intention, and then we move forward achieving that intention. Sometimes you can achieve it in a single session and one and done. They're in a different place, living in a different way. Awesome. Other times, like I have people I've been meeting with for years, and what they're doing is they'll achieve that intention and then move to another intention and then another, and work regularly. But I would say most do anywhere between 4 to 6 sessions, and then they're good. But there is those few that I've been meeting for years every week with some people. Yeah,
Hmm. What do you think? Because you did mention that technology is one of the biggest, when you had the lessons from your guide, that technology is one of the biggest factors that is disconnecting us from the source. So, how is your uh, relationship to technology? Because you also have a podcast. All of us are using this. So, what is your relationship to technology? How can we have a better understanding or
to me,
practice?
it is just energy, just like finances are energy, but it's energy that I can shift around to places that work for me. Um, technology, it's one of those things that if I allow it, it will take over my life, especially in my free time. So, one thing about my life, I don't have much free time. It's all scheduled out months in advance, literally to the minute. Like there's, almost every minute of my day is scheduled from wake up to bed. But I like that. I don't love it, but I like it because I get to make a difference that way. Um, but when it comes to my leisure time, I do have to be very careful. I have to set parameters. I have to set limits. If I'm going to utilize what I call entertainment media, that's going to be Instagram, Twitter, X, Facebook, those kind of things. If I'm going to look at those, I have to set a limit before I start looking. So a limit would be like 15 minutes, 30 minutes. And you can go into certain phones, you can go in and set a limit to any app that you use. And if there's an app that is not building your soul or lifting you up, per se, then you can put a limit on it. That could be a game, that could be. My mind loves physics, so I'm very blessed that when I do have some entertainment time, I'm a guy that can listen to like the driest lecture on physics, and as long as my mind is following it, I'll listen for hours. But if it's not following it, for some reason my energy is not in a place where I'm following it, then no, it's not going to happen. So, in those cases, then I might turn to a Instagram or a Twitter or something. But for me, I try not to turn to those things. I really do. I try to do meditation first. So if I have 15 minutes free in my day, I will, number one, use it to do some breath work. I'll follow that up with a little bit of mini meditation, just plugging in, connecting to my own divinity, looking to see if there's any direction that I need to follow right now for me or for my family. And then if there's still some time, I might plug into one of those other things. Yeah. But with a limit, again, with a limit. Yeah.
Hmm. So when you came back after the NDE, you got emotional because you missed home and you wanted to go back home. Now, when you speak about it, you don't get so emotional. You seem like you found heaven on earth. What happened?
Well, what it is, I've gotten really good at sharing it because I've shared it so many times. Yeah, I've been sharing it now for 15 years. So over the years, I even about 6 years ago, just for fun, I went and got hypnotized to see if there was part of my experience I was forgetting. And it was exactly the same saying it conscious, awake, as it was under full hypnosis. So to me, I love that it stayed the same all these years. Nothing's changed in there. So to me, it's easier to talk about now. But if I meditate and I start thinking about the actual love I was feeling there, I do. I just turn into a puddle. I do. Yeah.
You know, a lot of us who are facing the same thing, they go for these retreats and these meditation sessions and all of these things. It's like you're chasing it constantly. You go to these different countries, you attend this retreat over there, you attend that session over there. Did you try to do that as well? Did you try?
I don't need to. I know that I can access that inside. I don't need to access it outside me. I do hold retreats, but those are more for helping people turn on their spirituality, learn how to live more in alignment with their spiritual nature, learn how to eat clean food, drink clean drink, and learn how to treat the body in a way that it's set up to help you with your spirituality. So that's the kind of stuff I do for fun, but I'm not opposed to it. People have said for years, why don't you go do ayahuasca? Why don't you do
Yeah.
psilocybin? I don't need to. Like 10 minutes in a chair, and I'm seeing what those people would pay money to go to South America and see. Um, to me, it's just really, really deep meditation, and anybody can do that. I'm not dissing that though. I really am a firm believer that if something is precious to our soul path, it will speak to us. And for some people, that is plant medicine.
Makes sense. Have you spoken with your guide Drake after that?
Yes,
Yeah.
weekly, and some weeks daily. Yeah, yeah.
So now if you speak to Drake, how do you get the message? What is it? How do you
Same
know
way.
it's Drake?
I just directly understand him. So every soul has an energy, almost a flavor. And so when he's connecting to me, communicating to me, I know it's him. Yeah. It's kind of like your sibling. If you grow up in a family and you see your sibling in a group of people, you could just walk up next to them and pretty much know a ton about them, right? It's like that. You build a familiarity with them. Yeah.
And did any other senses awaken after you came back? Like you started hearing more, seeing more?
Yes. Yes. So there's times where I see spirit. That one is less common, but it comes and goes. It gets stronger in the fall, and then it wanes towards the spring, which is weird. But every year I know it's coming. Um, there's been years it was so strong, I almost sought out medication on it. Thank goodness I did. I did seek out once, but um, that's a whole nother story to itself. The doctor himself was like, no, you don't need medicine. You need to figure out what this is. Um, and he told me to go see a priest. So, I've worked with it over the years. Mostly I have what's called clairvoyant, where spirit will send me symbols. And then I, over the years, have learned to dissect those symbols and get meaning from them. Yeah. But they're always adding new symbols, like constantly. I think I'm like, okay, it's been like 2 months now. I haven't seen a new symbol. And that day I'll see 5. So it's funny how spirit works.
How do they show the symbols to you?
They show them to me in my third eye. So all of us have third eye vision. It comes through what I understand to be your pineal gland, the pine cone gland inside your brain. Fluoride crystallizes that gland, so it does make it hard to see if you have fluoride built up in your system, and heavy metals too. Heavy metals will gather there. So I make sure I live a fluoride-free life. I also live an aluminum-free life. I don't put aluminum in or on my body anywhere. I try to stay away from all of the glyphosates, all of the petrochemicals, all of the glycols. I don't like those things because they do block the pineal. So as you learn that, the pineal itself gets you clearer and clearer and clearer vision. And for me, not eating meat makes my pineal much clearer. I get much clearer if I'm not eating meat. I can still get the message. It's just not as clear. So yeah, for me, that's how it works.
Okay, so a lot of the terminologies you use now, I didn't understand. I just know fluoride is there in the toothpaste. Then where do you find
Yeah,
glyphosate?
it's in water too. Most
It's in
water,
the
it's
water.
added. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I know that there's a TDS meter, right? Which checks the amount of nutrients or something in the water. How do you have the right kind of water? Because all the water is anyway.
Yeah, I do reverse osmosis filtered,
Yeah.
and then I might have magnesium added back into it. Some people do. But so I either do distilled, which is filtered everything, but I also put it in glass vessels where it can move in the vessel. And that's called living water. Hydrogen water is like that too. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. When I started to get people on the podcast and they explain their visions or their experiences to me, it used to make me frustrated because I couldn't see it. I'm like, what is it? Is it true? Are they actually seeing it? So I wanted to open my third eye so much. But then what happened was that in the morning, I'm very brave and I want it opened. But nighttime, I'm like, oh my God, what if there is someone here? I don't want to see the spirit here. Nighttime, I want the third eye closed. And then morning, I get very
So
hyperactive.
what you have to do is you have to recognize that opened or closed, spirit and energy cannot bring you harm unless you invite it with your fear. So if you can control your fear, even if there's something very nefarious coming through your home, you can send it away with just loving it. And that sounds weird, but it's kind of like if someone is breaking into your home energetically, but they themselves are the opposite of love. If you send them love, that's as good as like kicking them out of your house. So if you start empowering yourself with the love energy, if anything negative gets around your house, you just send it with love and they go away. Yeah, I've had hundreds of experiences with things moving around me, and it's happened regularly for 10 years. I couldn't even have speakers close to me. They would just stop working. For about the first year and a half after my experience, if I put my hand near a bulb, it would go brighter and sometimes it would go out. And once in a while, if I picked up a fluorescent bulb, it would just light up. But it was just excess energy. I was learning to control my energy back then. But we all have that in us. Now, since I do find a lot of orbs of light in the field of recording for a lot of stuff. Sometimes it's dust, sometimes it's orbs, but it's pretty interesting to see all the energy that's all around us, and if we can build love into what we're doing, it amplifies the space. It does. And it invites in all sorts of beautiful energy. The love does. And allows you to not have fear, not have fear of anything out there.
That makes sense. This year, they've been, I mean, I'm new to the whole thing, but this year we had a lot of the channelists talking about major changes happening, upgrades, ascension, etc., etc., etc. Since you're so sensitive to energy, did you feel that?
Yeah, for sure. I've been feeling the upgrades going on. It's for me. It's been weird because I know a bunch of things that, as they play out, it's going to be very hard for us as society. So there's this love-hate relationship with stuff that's coming. These upgrades, I love the upgrades, but with those upgrades comes authenticity. And our world is not authentic at all. Majority of the people, like if I walked up to anyone random and public and said, who are your 10 heroes in life? 8 out of those 10 are horrible beings behind closed doors. And not just horrible beings. Some of them are horrible to a level that the world would want them gone off of this world if we knew all the truths, right? So there's this authenticity that's coming now. 2025, it started actually in 2020, but in 2025, that's going to be our year of revelation. That's going to be our year of revealing the new paradigm of truth, where we don't believe the marketing that has been done to us in the past. And we believe our gut, we believe our instincts, we believe what spirit speaks to us. And there will be a moment in the very near future that no matter what the illusion is that's going on in front of you, you'll know if it's true or false by what's inside you. Not by what you're seeing, but what's inside you. And in the future, the heroes are going to be ascended masters, or they're going to be actual good people who are making big differences on this earth, and not the people that are perceived to be good people or perceived to be heroes. They'll be actual heroes doing good things. Yeah. So it's gonna be different. Yeah, 2025's got some major adventures, huge revelations in Hollywood, the public sector, the financial sector, the government sector. All sorts of truths are going to be told this year, 2025.
We can already see it happening. We can already, I mean, you can't say that people have started believing in their intuition, but for sure they've started doubting whatever is being marketed to them.
Mm-hmm.
That has
Yeah,
definitely started.
it
So,
has. Yeah, yeah.
so do you have any final message for the audience?
Know that the Creator loves you, and that the universe looks at us as very precious, because this is the hardest school to get into. So we're precious. So treat yourself precious. Treat the others around you as precious. That would be my remarks to leave you with.
I love that. We have something called the cosmic close, but I just asked two questions inspired by Raput Spira's work. The first question is, how may we enjoy lasting peace and happiness?
Well, before you take any action in your life, enjoy some breaths around what you plan to do. And what you'll be surprised is many times when you're about to take action, if you breathe, take a few breaths, you'll get clarity on whether that action supports or tears you apart. That's what I would recommend. Bring breath. Become a flower or a flower with your breath.
Wow, I love that. The second question is, what is the nature of our reality?
Experience. We're here to experience. That's why we're here. The same way that someone who is in a home setup. They could be playing a video game. They are not the being in the video game. They are the one up here controlling it. We are not what we see in the mirror here. We are the being controlling us.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much, Vinny. Please tell us where we can find you and the work that you do.
Yeah, everything I do is through my nonprofit, which is livinggodslight.org.
Love that. All of your communications and everything that has been happening is with your wife. So special thanks to Andrea for
Oh,
coordinating the
yeah.
whole thing.
She's
She's,
amazing. Yeah.
yeah, she's definitely amazing. So I wish I could say hi to Andrea too. So thanks to Andrea as
I'll
well.
say hi to her for you. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Vinny, for coming on this podcast and speaking to us. The links to everything mentioned would be there in the show notes. And I hope we speak again. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to see where this goes, and I'd love to speak again.